Thank you all for being here. My name is Kishan. I work for Intel. I'll be providing a very brief overview of the IoTVT projects. Hopefully, you should leave this talk with some idea of the various software functional blocks that make up any implementation of the OCF specifications. So this is the agenda. Following the introduction, I will briefly describe a typical architecture of an OCF implementation, speak a little bit about IoTVT and IoTVT Lite, which are two different projects, and end with a series of pointers to resources for getting started. So IoTVT is really an umbrella of open source projects for building various kinds of IoT devices. They are reference implementations of the OCF specifications, which is kind of their primary purpose. We started off with a single project named IoTVT, but subsequently released a second parallel project called IoTVT Constraint in 2016, which has been recently renamed to IoTVT Lite. But both these projects are being actively developed and maintained and evolving independently, and they both serve as starting points for any company that wants to build an OCF product, and to help them in a way that gets them to hit the ground running. Being open source and with a permissive license, companies are at liberty to shape or mold these code bases as required to meet the proprietary needs of their products. So IoTVT as an initiative is supported by the Open Connectivity Foundation, its member companies, and the open source community. The OCF, as you might know, is an industry consortium with several member companies who collaborate to develop and outline an architecture and specification for establishing and securing communications over the Internet of Things. So there are a series of specifications. The core and security specifications describe the fundamental capabilities of OCF devices. There are other specifications that address verticals such as smart home. Much of the text in these specifications forms what's the core of the IoTVT projects because they just translate the code. OCF also runs a very comprehensive program for certification in order to ascertain that vendor devices fully comply with the specifications, and more importantly, that they can interoperate with each other without a glitch. And OCF also has certain work groups dealing in strategy and marketing, which sometimes indirectly inform the roadmaps for these projects. So overall, the initiatives within OCF and IoTVT operate independently, but there are some natural synergies. So there is a level of cooperation between the two and feedback loops. So this is just the typical architecture of any OCF implementation. To the left is a software stack diagram that composes all OCF functionality. This is really the essence that's present on every OCF device. The OCF stack relies on external services and the operating system, primarily the network stack, as well as certain other horizontal functions such as memory management, threading, random number generator, a TLS implementation for security, and some form of persistent storage for handling credentials and other internal state. The OCF protocol is IP-based, and so an implementation will have a connectivity layer at the bottom, which directly interacts with the network stack. The security layer implements OCF security model, which constitutes a number of standard OCF resources for handling various security functions, and it also drives the DTLS and TLS interactions and tracks their state. The resource layer handles the CoAP protocol and also has implementations of OCF standard resources for resource discovery and a number of other functions. The resource layer exposes APIs up to applications to be able to create and access resources. And an implementation may also have multiple language bindings. The IoT application itself incorporates the OCF library, but may incorporate other libraries as well, depending on the needs of the product. To the right are a few independent yet significant functional blocks performing duties that are specified by OCF, but may or may not exist on every OCF device. So here are a few examples. Every OCF network has some infrastructure for handling security, credential, and access management. So when you bring a new device, you need to onboard it into the security context of your OCF network, provision credentials so that those devices can establish encrypted channels, and also provision an access control list to grant only authorized access to resources. There may be high-level services such as a resource directory on your network, which really maintains references to resources hosted on other devices. There's also the concept of Wi-Fi easy setup, which lets you associate a new device to your Wi-Fi network in, I think, much the same way as you would set up a Chromecast device. And lastly, there may be modules that bridge from the OCF world to other established IoT ecosystems, such as Zigbee and Z-Wave. So to sum up, these are all of the components and functional blocks that are relevant to OCF and which you would expect to find in any project that supports OCF. So as I had sort of briefly suggested earlier, so there are two separate implementations and parallel projects, IoTivity and IoTivity Lite, which are formally supported by OCF. IoTivity is kind of a larger project, and by virtue of its design, needs more capable devices, such as a smartphone or a PC. It has multiple language bindings to C, C++, Java, and JavaScript. It also runs on Linux, Windows, Android, and macOS, and may have also been ported to one or more development platforms. IoTivity Lite is a second implementation, which is a lightweight implementation, and as a result can run on a wider range of devices, including a few classes of constrained devices. It runs on Linux, Windows, Mac OS, and a few real-time operating systems. It also has a working adaptation layer to run on some kinds of embedded Android devices, but currently lacks a Java binding to be able to build Android apps. It exposes only C APIs, but can be extended with other language bindings. Now, as you'll be conducting your hackathon with IoTivity today, I thought I'll just briefly give you a sense of what the directory structure looks like. So this is the root level directory structure for the IoTivity source tree. Resource, which is highlighted, is really a top-level directory that contains all of the source code that forms the core of the IoTivity project. And README scons text details all of the build instructions for IoTivity. So IoTivity sample applications are located under resource/examples. And IoTivity uses cons as a build system. And so when you actually go through the README, you can look at a few steps where you need to install a few dependencies, which could be standard packages on your Linux distribution. And then you'd run scons. Build output is usually stored in out Linux x86 64 release. And IoTivity shared libraries, that is SO files, are located immediately under that path. And the sample app binaries are located under release/resource/examples. Now, before you run the samples, you need to set your library search path so that the applications can find those shared libraries. In order to do that, you need to set LD library path to the release directory, which contains the SOs, and then you can run the samples. So I'll just end with a few resources. I mean, that's a link to the IoTivity repository, the build instructions, README. There's also a link to the IoTivity Lite repository if you're interested, and the build instructions. IoTivity Lite uses a slightly different strategy for build, where the build system for any port is native to its own environment. So the Linux port uses Make and Windows uses Visual Studio projects. And lastly, there is the IoTivity Wiki, which has a lot of information about its architecture as well as other development guidelines. So that's it. That's all I had for you today. I think Nathan will continue with more details on the security architecture and related concepts.